I mean, in real life, like, Michael Jordan sounds like a truly horrific person to be around. And as, like, a notorious bully and asshole. And apparently, like, he would just, like, refuse to continue filming, like, at a certain point in the day. And, like, like, apparently, like, he was hard to work with on set, and, like, him and Pitka would, like, yell at each other and stuff. But, we weren't privy to all that at the time, and, like, we didn't, like, know, like, who his wife was, or, like, we didn't know his kids yet, or anything. Like, they were not personalities in their own right. Whereas, like, I think there's something, like, you cannot make a movie like this around an athlete's family anymore, like, in the social media age. Like, I know Savannah James, I know LeBron's wife, I know that's not her, It's like, I know LeBron's kids, like, I see them on his fucking Instagram.
Yeah,
like...
but I think, so, that's fair, but it is interesting. I mean, the most interesting thing, honestly, about rewatching Space Jam now is remembering how Jordan was this, like, crazy global icon. Like, even Pitka talks about how you can't make, like, he says, like, as great as LeBron and Curry are, like, you'll never have Jordan, there'll never be a figure like Jordan again. And he's probably right, like, just because of the way, like, I mean, it's because he came along at this time where, like, you could be a global icon, you could be in movies and on commercials that would go internationally, but, like, in these bite-size, like, in this such manageable way. Like, the weirdest thing about watching the first movie is, like, so there's a scene, so it starts with him, also, like, watching the movie makes it really seem like he retired to play baseball as, like, a promotional gimmick for the movie, because it's, like, very central to the movie is that he played baseball for a year. And so...
Yeah, like, his whole career is, like, neatly tied in.
And the movie, like, opens with, like, extended montage of Jordan highlights, and it's just like, okay, this is cool, but, like, I don't really know what it has to do with the plot of the movie, and it's not, like, a long movie. Anyway, so, like, but, okay, so Jordan plays at this minor league game. That's, like, the first thing you see of him besides the montage in the movie. Then he goes home. And in the movie, he supposedly lives on just, like, a regular suburban block in Chicago. It's just like a normal person's...
Well, I guess the implication is it's Birmingham, because he's playing in the minor leagues at the time.
That's true, but it's clearly not. Like, it's clearly supposed to be Chicago.
Yeah,
because it's like, yeah. So it's like...
The Birmingham Barons have relocated to Chicago.
Yeah, or they're, like, playing a team in Illinois on the road. Who knows? Whatever. It doesn't matter. But, like, so he's, like, his house is just, like, a regular middle-class house in, like, a suburban neighborhood or, like, a middle-class neighborhood of Chicago. And he has, like, a dog. He has, like, there's, like, a gimmick about how his dog is, like, attacks him or whatever. Not, like, like, licks him and whatever, and it's a bulldog, and he has these kids, and he has a wife, and they, like, his sons in the movie have this, like, are, like, they're played by actors, but they have the same name as Jordan's actual sons, in the way that, like, LeBron does not have a son named Dom. Like, he's, like, they made up character sons for him, whereas, like, again, like you said, like, they don't know, we didn't know what Michael Jordan's sons looked like, so, you just said, you call somebody, I think it's Jeff Jordan, and everyone's like, sure, that could be him, I don't know. And so, like, he's just, like, a guy who lives in, like, a kind of nice house. Whereas, like, LeBron's house in this movie is, like, the most, like, palatial thing you'll ever see. Like, it might, I don't think it's LeBron's actual house, but, like, it's where you'd imagine LeBron. It's like, there's literally a private basketball court that has a, like, basketball feeder thing where, like, you just say the word ball and it will pass you a ball. Which, like, I don't know if that's, like, a common thing rich people have. I've never seen, like, somebody just have that. There's, like, a gimmick where, like, it hits somebody in the head comically, ha 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 ha. But, like, the idea is, like LeBron is appropriately obscenely wealthy in this movie, whereas Jordan is just supposed to be, like, a regular guy. Like, we're supposed to just think he, like, lives next to, like, his insurance agent or something in Chicago, and it's like, what the,
like,
what?
They get him Wayne Knight, who's, like, the Birmingham Barons PR guy, and they're like, you're gonna be Jordan's PR guy, and then Jordan just, like, shrugs his shoulders, like, all right, I guess you can help.
Yeah, it's just like, he's just like a kind of, like, a regular dude, like, haplessly going through his workaday life or whatever. Yeah. Whereas LeBron is, like, pitched as this icon, and so it's also interesting, like, the opening scene of both movies is, like, a scene of them as children. And the first one is Jordan in, like, his backyard in North Carolina in, like, 1973 or whatever. He was, as like, a kid. And he's, like, shooting free throws in, like, his backyard. And his dad comes out and he's like, Michael, like, it's time to go to bed. And Michael's like, but I just want to stay up and keep shooting. And he's like, oh, I like that attitude, son, or something like that. And then he just says, like, here's all the things I'm gonna do. Like, I'm gonna go to North Carolina and play for Dean Smith, and then he shoots it and it goes in. He's like, and I'm gonna win a national championship, and he shoots it and it goes in. He's like, and I'm gonna get drafted into the NBA, and he shoots it and it goes in. He's like, then I'm gonna win a national win the NBA finals, or I'm gonna win an MVP. And he like, so it's like all these things he does eventually accomplish, and he's like determiningly as a kid doing it, and his dad's just like, oh. You rambunctious little youngster, and then they like goes off to bed, and it's like, okay, that's a cute little story about how determined like Michael Jordan was. So it's like, and again, he's in the backyard in North Carolina in like a middle class person's house. Like, it's a very much like he has a good life. He just wants to play in the NBA. The LeBron thing is LeBron. It starts with like his single mother dropping him off at a game and saying like, I can't go watch the game because
pick you up
on time because I have to work. So it's like already the saddest possible thing. and it's like he's already like completely bummed. He's like, this is awful. Like, my mom has to work and I can't. She won't see me play.
Then Avon Barksdale is his coach.
Yes, Wood Harris, formerly Avon Barksdale, who plays his coach in the game. He's like gets mad at him for playing Game Boy instead of focusing on the game, and he's like, you gotta focus. He's like, basketball needs to be your number one priority or whatever, and he's like, you have a chance to be great or something. And then it jumps, then that's like his origin story. And so it's like, what's interesting is like what I'm sort of getting at with this long-winded explanation is the economic ascendancy of LeBron is very much central to the story, right? He starts off like a single mother, like kid who doesn't have, who's too distracted, and his focus on basketball is what launches him to like catastrophic wealth and being an icon. Whereas like Jordan like starts off like a middle-class guy and like ends off basically as a middle-class life guy in the context of the movie. Again, obviously Jordan was like obscenely wealthy in real life, but he's like portrayed as just like a guy who has like the idea is like going to play basketball or minor league baseball is just like his neighbor going to like into the dentist office and like cleaning some teeth for the day or whatever. But the economic growth is not part of it. It's all just like what he accomplishes as an athlete. It's not about economic upward mobility. It's not that story in the way that LeBron's story, which is like sort of true. Like Jordan, like obviously he made a lot more money than he used to, but he didn't have the like poor background that LeBron did. The story of like the single mother, and raised with very little means. He wasn't like living large, but the idea was like Jordan actually had a good, stable, like, baby boomer-esque kind of Gen X-y life. Whereas like LeBron had a much more like hard scrabble upbringing. And so the wealth is so it's a very interesting way that like, I hadn't really thought of that. Their iconography is tied to, like, LeBron's iconography is this like this guy who made it. And it's like, this guy who became a capitalist, this guy who went from poor and now is this like billion-dollar institution, Whereas Jordan's successes, at least when you could hermetically seal his perception, they were primarily basketball successes. It was like he won an MVP. He won 3 titles in a row, which was he was the first guy since Bill Russell to do that. And so like you have this real like, and then he won the gold medal. Like, there's this real sense of like basketball related accomplishments. Whereas LeBron's are like, this film is very much self-consciously reflecting on LeBron's off-court legacy a lot in the movie.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Algae Rhythm, one of his, like, he literally says in the movie, referring to LeBron James, he says, algorithmically speaking, he is more than an athlete.
Yeah.
And, it's like, and, like, in the Michael Jordan montage in the original Space Jam, it's, like, just basketball highlights. It's, like, him dunking, him winning the finals, all these things, we've seen all the B-roll. Whereas in, like, LeBron James' similar montage, in the second movie, a lot of it's, like, no, I won't shut up and dribble.
Yeah.
And it's, like, like, athletes standing up for social justice.
Right, there's a clip of him at the White House with Obama.
Yeah, and it's, like, and it is this, it's supposed to be like suggesting something about who LeBron is and like what he means to the world and like what he's become and what he's made of himself in a way that like was not present in the original Space Jam.
Right. Yeah, and I think that leads to it all kind of ties this idea of like the evolutions of capitalism that you can see from the first movie to the second movie, where like Jordan in the first movie is like portrayed as an employee, as like a guy who works for either the Toon Squad or the Bulls or the Birmingham Barons.
Well, not even, because like as you said, he has no skin in the game in the
Right.
basketball game at first. Like he's just doing it because he's a good sport.
He's a good guy. Yeah, it's either an employee or just like a friend, you know, or like he literally says, "I'm doing this to help my friend Bugs Bunny." Whereas like with LeBron, everything is so self-consciously about like his perception and his iconography, and it's like, I don't want to be seen as like a corporate guy. I want to be seen as a ball player, even though I'm also in this movie that is commenting on my perception. And then like there are like a lot of jokes about him leaving Cleveland and the decision and stuff like that, and it's this very like weird like like he's trying to control the narrative in the way that Jordan was just like, I'm just showing up, like saying my lines and going home, like, which is obviously not true, but it was very much like in the context of the movie, that's how it felt, or that's how it's portrayed.
Yeah.